is for the way you look at me. O is for the only one I see. V is very, very extraordinary. E is even more than anyone that you adore can love. Is all that I can give to you. Love is more than just a game for two. Two in love can make it. Take my heart and please don't break it. Love was made for me.
Let's start right in. Just tell me when I go live, and we're going to go live. Hey, welcome to WBGR Sports Network and the Tom the Bomb Sports Talk Show. And this is the day that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. If you don't think it's a great day, just try missing one. And we, L-O-V-E, love sports on the Tom the Bomb Show. I'm your host, Tommy Wood. My co-host, Troy Wood.
What's up, y'all?
My favorite son.
His only son.
And we got another fantastic show for you today. Hey, look, the show is live. If you want to give us a shout out, the number here is 301-429-9247. No trivia today, but we do have the results from our poll questions. Remember, you got to get rid of one of these fantastic shooters: Klay Thompson, Reggie Miller, Ray Allen, Steph Curry, or Damian Lillard. Troy said he was getting rid of Reggie Miller. You guys agreed with me. The higher percentage of you guys said that we were going to let Damian Lillard go. It's a tough choice, but we had to make it. Hey, we don't want to hold you back anymore. We got a fantastic guest today. Today's guest on the Tom the Bomb Show is Dr. Harry Edwards. Was born in St. Louis, but grew up in East St. Louis, Illinois. After an outstanding career at East St. Louis High, he graduated in 1960 and was awarded an athletic scholarship to San Jose State, from which he graduated in 1964 with high honors. He subsequently was awarded a Woodrow Wilson Fellowship and a university fellowship to Cornell University, where he completed an MA and his PhD in sociology. He was on the faculty of California at Berkeley from 1970 to 2001 and currently is a professor emeritus in the Department of Sociology. From 1992 to 2001, Dr. Edwards was consulting inmate counselor at the San Francisco County Jail at San Bruno and periodically worked with inmate programs at California's San Quentin State Prison as well. From 2001 to 2003, Dr. Edwards was the director of the Department of Parks and Recreation for the city of Oakland, California. Dr. Edwards also has a long and storied history of activism focused upon the development at the interface of sports, race, and society. The combination of his experience as an African American, as an athlete in the 1960s, and his training in the discipline of sociology led Harry to propose that by the late 1960s, America had become very complacent about the issue of race in sports. He ultimately called for a black athlete boycott of the United States 1968 Olympic team, in large part to dramatize the racial inequalities and barriers confronting blacks in sports and society. The movement resulted in demonstrations by black athletes across the nation and ultimately at the Mexico City Games, a movement commemorated by a 20-foot high statue on the campus at San Jose State University. Years later, Dr. Edwards was to become a consultant on issues of diversity for all three major sports. He was hired by the commissioner of the Major League Baseball in 1987 to help with efforts to increase front office representation of minorities and women in baseball. He also was with the Golden State Warriors of the NBA from 1987 to 1995, specializing in personnel recruitment and counseling. In 1986, he began work with the San Francisco 49ers in the area of player personnel counseling and programs. The programs and methods that he developed for handling player personnel issues were adopted by the entire NFL in 1992, as was the Minority Coaches Internship Program developed by Dr. Edwards and Coach Bill Walsh to increase opportunities for minority coaches in the NFL. Over his career, Dr. Harry Edwards has persisted in efforts to compel the sports establishments to confront and to effectively address issues pertaining to diversity and equal opportunity within its ranks. Dr. Edwards, a scholar activist who became spokesperson for what amounted to a revolution in sports, is considered the leading authority on development at the interface of race, sport, and society, and was a pioneering scholar in the founding of sociology of sport as an academic discipline. Dr. Edwards' career-long dedication to teaching and educating has been memorialized with the establishment of the Dr. Harry Edwards Follow Your Bliss Award by the San Francisco 49ers Professional Football Organization to honor outstanding teachers. He is also a 2018 inductee into the Academic All-American of Hall of Fame. Dr. Edwards has been a consultant with producers of sports-related programs, numerous television and film productions in the United States and abroad over the last 40 years. He's received dozens of awards, honors, including several honorary doctor's degrees, and has been honored by the University of Texas, which has established the Dr. Harry Edwards Lectures, a permanent series of invited lectures on themes related to sport and society. Dr. Edwards has scores of articles, and he's written 4 books, The Struggle That Must Be, Sociology of Sports, Black Students, and the Revolt of the Black Athletes. Let's have a Tom the Bomb welcome for our esteemed guest and East St. Louis native, Dr. Harry Edwards. Welcome to the show, Dr. Edwards.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a privilege to be here.
Hey, look, let's start. I'd like to start off with this quote here, Matthew 12:30. From out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. What's really going on with the NFL, with John Gruden and the Washington football team emails? What's your take on that, Dr. Edwards?
Well, first of all, no organization wants its internal messages, emails, Instagrams, Twitters, and so forth that are intended for internal communication to be exposed publicly. That's the first thing. But having said that, the reality is that this thing has spilled over into the public arena, and the league is going to have to deal with it. I think that John Gruden, who was not the original target of the 650,000 email review and investigation, was exposed through the process of that investigation, and I think the league did the proper thing and really putting pressure on the team at the Raiders to let him go. You can't be in that position and make those kinds of statements. I think that it's a complicated situation in the sense that people try to paint the entire league with the Gruden brush, but the reality is Gruden was reacting to the fact that the National Football League had drafted gay athletes, openly gay athletes. He was reacting to the fact that the NFL Players Association did have a black director. He was reacting to the fact that the NFL did have women referees on the sidelines. So to paint the entire league with the Gruden brush is it's oversimplifying the situation. It's a very complex situation. But Gruden had to go. I mean, you look at the circumstances as they evolved. I mean, his usually projected avatar, Chucky, the doll, he made Chucky look like Peter Pan. So I mean, you can't make those kinds of statements.
Dr. Edwards, you've been knee-deep in the struggle since the 60s. Are things getting better?
That, too, is a very, very complicated question. When you ask a question like that, if you get a simple answer, it's probably wrong. There have been substantial changes. There have been things that have happened that we could have never imagined. No one expected to see a Barack Obama, and a lot of people didn't believe it once he got here. So at the end of the day, we have to look at in what sector are you talking about, and toward what end. Overall, there have been tremendous changes. Whether there's been progress, progress is a very, very complicated and curious concept. It's a lot like profit. At some point, it comes down to who's keeping the books. And so depending upon who's keeping the books, that judgment is typically made. But there's no way that a statement of uniform progress in race relations and the economy and women's rights or anything else can be made and be accurate. We have to talk very specifically about which areas. We we look at sport, there's no question that Jackie Robinson made a tremendous contribution. And by 1973, there were 21% African Americans on the field in Major League Baseball. Today, there's 7.6% African Americans on the field, and the same numbers for all practical purposes of blacks in management positions. So, has there been progress? Has there been change? Not in that realm, despite the fact that we've had a black president and today have a black vice president.
So, Dr. Edwards, growing up in East St. Louis, how did that prepare you for the journey that you've been on through your life?
When I grew up in East St. Louis, we had no sewers in the South End. We didn't have sidewalks in the South End. We had a fairly high degree of poverty. We had a lot of people who had just moved north from the South in order to escape the violence and unemployment and so forth down there. But it was a difficult time. It was a difficult era to grow up. And by the time that I left East St. Louis, there was really not a lot that the world could do to me. And I was aware enough to understand that I had a chance to develop in a way once I left East St. Louis that was not available to me while I was there. And I tried to take full advantage of that situation. But whatever I ultimately became, East St. Louis had a tremendous impact in terms of setting the table for me in that regard, and for that I'll be forever grateful. What I have regrets about is that I know that there are so many people that I grew up with, went to school with at Dunbar Elementary School and Hughes Quinn Junior High School, and ultimately over at East Side that were brighter than I was, that were more competitive than I was, and they never got out of the area. Some of them ended up in prison, some of them ended up in the cemetery, some of them ended up just being in East St. Louis doing well, but I often look back and wonder if they had had the opportunities I had, what could they have become? East St. Louis is a phenomenal city. It's a great city. You go back and look at what that city has produced. I don't care what he's talking about, Josephine Baker, Miles Davis, what he's talking about, ambassadors, politicians, educators, athletes, of course. It's a beautiful city in so many ways. The people there are so beautiful. And I look back and see the people who languished, who did not have the opportunities that I had once I left, and I find that to be very, very tragic.
Dr. Edwards, why do you think so much talent comes out of this little Southern Illinois town? I mean, it's very, very small, as you know, but just like some of the names you just mentioned, I mean, there's athletes, there's world shakers, entertainment, politicians. Why do you think so much talent comes from this very small city?
Because I think that hard times compels the cream to rise to the top. You have a lot of tragedy beneath, but at the same time you have some outstanding survivors and contributors. Like I said, I mean, you look at Kellen Winslow, you look at Eric Wright, you look at Brian Cox, you look at all of the great athletes who've come through there, Cunzo Martin, the coach. You look at all of the great people who have come through there who have had an impact on not just changing society, but on changing the world in so many ways. What Miles Davis did in jazz is legendary. Mm-hmm. What Catherine Dunham did in dance is legendary.
Yes,
what
sir.
Josephine Baker did in entertainment is legendary. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you took the Super Bowl rings that have come out of East St. Louis, I mean, you probably would be amazed. So, mm-hmm. I mean, it tends to push the cream to the top. And like I said, there's some beautiful people in East St. Louis. There's some beautiful people that have come out of East St. Louis who contributed not just to society, but to the world.
Dr. Edwards, this is something I like to ask all the guests on my show. Everybody influenced somebody positively or negatively. Who influenced you, Dr. Edwards?
That's a difficult question, and I always have a problem with that question because, in hindsight, people tend to go back and say, "Oh yeah, I remember so and so. He had a tremendous influence on me." I was influenced by so many people.
Hmm.
I got a chance to talk to Malcolm X when I was doing my master's thesis on the Black Muslim family at Cornell University. I worked with Dr. King and talked to him the same way that I'm talking to you 2 months before he was assassinated. I worked with Stokely Carmichael and with H. Rap Brown. I was in the Black Panther Party with Huey Newton and Eldridge Cleaver. Angela Davis and I still talk, and good friends. We meet up at various jazz concerts and one thing or another talk about back in the day. I had wonderful mentors in the college ranks, and of course people like Bill Walsh, who taught me the value of always seeking collaborative activism, looking to see who out there is willing to work with you to help bear the burden. So when you ask me who influenced me, who were my mentors, and this doesn't even begin to talk about people that I read about, James Baldwin, who I knew, Paul Robeson, who I read about, wrote articles about and dedicated a chapter to him in my autobiography, The Struggle That Must Be. He had such an impact on me. I have been blessed in that regard. And if it comes down to one person, I don't know who that would be, because so many people contributed to my views and visions in terms of my own potentialities and contributions.
You know, we mentioned some of the books that you've written. Your book, Black Students. What's the message you're trying to get out for young black students?
Um, that ultimately, you have to take responsibility and accountability. You're not just a product of your circumstances. You have to learn to dream with your eyes open, to understand that there are going to be hills and valleys. It's not going to be easy, it's not going to be smooth, and it's not going to be quick. You go into your life, growing on with your life with that perspective, particularly when it comes to academics. You also have to learn to behave as if. When I came out of East St. Louis Senior High School, because I was in that first group of mass desegregation students who went to East Side in 1957, 56, 57, they really didn't know what to do with us when we got out there. So we played football in the fall, basketball in the winter, and we played track and field in the spring. But the educational development was not there. They didn't understand our families. They didn't understand our communities. They didn't know where we came from, the challenges that we had, and so forth and so on. So I had to learn to be a student. And one of the things that I found is that a path to that, part of it is you've got to behave as if. Every great student that I have ever taught or come across behaved as a great student long before they became a great student. What would a great student be doing now? What would a great athlete be doing now? And so forth. So those kinds of things I try to instill in black students. And also, to answer a question that I got a lot from my students at San Jose State and at Cal, is there a shortcut? Well, there is a shortcut to being a great student, to being a success, to being everything that you can be. And it's hard work. Everything else is more difficult. Hard work is the shortcut.
I like that. That's awesome. Hey, Dr. Edwards, I got two names I want you to comment on. Number one, Colin Kaepernick. Number two, Kyrie Irving.
Colin Kaepernick, who I worked with, interviewed before the draft when he came to the 49ers, worked with during the 7 years that he was at the 49ers, will go down in history along with some of the greatest athletes of his era. When the first time he took a knee at the San Francisco 49ers game, in point of fact, he was sitting on the cooler. He hadn't taken a knee yet. I went into the locker room afterwards and asked him to give me his jersey, his shoes, and his gloves, and to autograph them. And I sent them to Lonnie Bunch, at the National Museum for African American History and Culture. And Lonnie asked me, "Hey, why are you sending me this stuff? I mean, who is this guy?" I said, "Well, he's an injured backup quarterback at the San Francisco 49ers. Yeah, but why are you sending me this stuff? I'm trying to get a sports hall going here." I said, "Because I want you to put them in the National Museum for African American History and Culture sports hall, right between the stuff that you have in there for Tommy Smith and John Carlos and what you have for Muhammad Ali, because that is where he belongs." And of course, now we find out that that is in point of fact the case. So he will go down in history, not because of his football. He will go down in history because of his contribution in terms of what he managed to do as far as transforming his athletic stage into a platform to protest injustice. And that will keep him in the history books for the next 100 years. As far as Kyrie is concerned, he's always been a very, very interesting athlete because of the positions that he has taken. He said, as far as he's concerned, the earth is flat. Well, okay, good. I get that. He says that I have a right not to be vaccinated. I agree with that. But he doesn't have a right to play basketball. He doesn't have a right to risk the health, the lives of those he come in contact with over the course of a game or in practice or in his contacts that he makes through the game. He doesn't have a right to risk their lives, their health, and their family's life and health. So I'm supportive of it. If he doesn't want to get the vaccine, that's fine. But he doesn't have a right to play basketball. And I think that that's where the hard line has to be drawn.
Hey, Dr. Edwards, this wasn't necessarily in our notes, but it's kind of breaking news. We lost a legend, Dr. Colin Powell. Can you expound on your experiences with Dr. Colin Powell for our audience?
Colin Powell is one of the people that I admired more than anybody else. I didn't always agree with him, but usually when I didn't agree with him, it was because I didn't think he said enough. He was a very measured and strategic individual, very, very bright and committed. The thing that I liked about him more than anything else and really admired in him was the extent to which he understood the role of faith in everything that we do. The reality is that we know that one day we're going to get up and tie our shoes on and the coroner going to take them off of us. But it is just by virtue of faith that we say, but not today. So we make plans, we set schedules, we put together agendas and so forth. And Colin Powell always talked about, when he was talking to young people in particular, do not lose faith in the struggle. Do not lose faith in this country. This country is yours to fix. Not to simply curse and walk away. The reality is that he understood that role even in the most difficult and trying of times, following the assassination of Dr. King, following some of the travails and so forth that involved the African American community around issues like George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Jacob Blake and so forth. He always said, but keep the faith. And I always admired him for that. I'm asked from time to time, what is the greatest slogan coming out of the 1960s? We know about Black Lives Matter today. What is the greatest slogan coming out of the 1960s? Is it "We shall overcome"? Is it Black Power? Is it power to the people? Is it no justice, no peace? Absolutely not. The greatest slogan coming out of the 1960s was keep the faith. Because once we lose that, then what in the hell are we struggling for? And so at the end of the day, Colin Powell constantly drove those things home to successive generations. And as a soldier, as a diplomat, as a person of substance, I admired him tremendously for that. And today, we lost something great, not just in terms of a Black American, but in terms of an American and everything that this country is supposed to stand for and holds promise of establishing and contributing.
That's awesome. Dr. Edwards, you've worked with some of the greatest athletes in the world. These current athletes seem to be politically motivated, like the athletes from the 1960s. We talked about the Black Lives Matter. The women of the WNBA come to mind. What's your take on the few that don't want to be involved in movements and political arena today?
We're not bright enough to really assess that. We went through a period between 1972 and 2012 and the killing of Trayvon Martin, where the overwhelming majority of athletes were athletes that were working in collaborative relationships with corporate interests. David Stern made Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson and Julius Erving and a whole generation of athletes, literally not just faces of franchises, but partners in the enterprise. And so what that did was enable Magic Johnson not just to aspire to be in movies like Jim Brown, but to produce the movies, to own the theaters that they're shown in, and to hire the people who ran the theaters. Michael Jordan didn't just want a shoe, he wanted his shoe. And so these athletes became walking corporations, and that is who set the table for athletes to go to Orlando during a playoff of the NBA and say, wait a minute, when George Floyd was murdered, no, we're not playing until the league takes a stand in terms of social justice. This is what enabled Steph Curry, when the president and owner of Under Armour came out in the newspaper in 2016 and said, Trump is an asset. Steph Curry got on the phone and said, I don't understand that. I have a $90 million contract with Under Armour. You have to explain that to me. I'll take, if you take off the ET, then I'll agree with you. But if you're saying that he's an asset, you have to explain that to me. That very next day, that owner took out a full-page ad in the Baltimore newspaper saying I was misquoted. It was his statement, and he said I was misquoted. That's like Charles Barkley in his autobiography when somebody asked him about something, he said I was misquoted. Well, it's an autobiography. How can you be misquoted? But anyway, he understood that Steph Curry could get on the phone at this time of the social media and say, don't buy Under Armour. And he sold his last T-shirt. That came out of that era when David Stern and Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson and Charles Barkley and Dr. J were in collaborative economic relationships, moving players from simply face of the franchise to walking corporations and full partners in the NBA enterprise. Women in the WNBA have gone down that same path. So in Georgia, they could go out, they could stand up and say, hey, we don't want somebody in here who makes those kinds of statements about minorities and the Black Lives Matter movement being our owner. And within a month, that person was gone. And one of the individual players who had led the movement to get her out became part owner of the Atlanta Dream WNBA team.
How about that?
We have to understand that not everything has to be a protest, form of protest activism. Sometimes it can be a form of collaborative activism. So LeBron James and Carmelo Anthony and CP3 and Dwayne Wade stand with one foot on the shoulder of Bill Russell and those athletes, but they stand with another foot on the shoulder of Magic Johnson and Michael Jordan and Charles Barkley and Dr. J and those athletes. And that is the brilliance of what happened in Orlando when they said, no, we're not playing until you deal with social justice. And the director of the NBA came out and said, what do we need to do?
No. Do you think that that's excuse me? Do you think that that's money motivated, or do you think that's motivated by morale and knowing that that's what should be done?
There has never been a significant change in terms of race relations in this country that was not transactional. It doesn't happen because of constitutional guarantees or mandates. It doesn't happen because of morality. It happens because if you can't give a sucker something, you better be able to take something away from it if you want to get anything done. And so what these athletes had done as a consequence of the contributions of Dr. J and Michael Jordan and Barkley and all of those athletes, they not only had a seat in the room, they had a seat at the table. And as is typical when you have a seat, when you get a seat at the table, they don't just bring in an extra chair. Somebody has to get up. And so when these athletes began to wield that kind of economic power, where if they weren't heard at the table, then nobody was heard at the table. That was purely transactional. Jackie Robinson coming into Major League Baseball, that wasn't about brotherhood, that was about business. Oak Branch Rickey was sharp enough to understand that there was an untapped pool of talent out there that would make all of the difference in the world in terms of the viability of the game in the post-World War II, Cold War world. And that's how Jackie Robinson got into the major league. So this thing has always been transactional. We simply have to, look, you can be honest when you can't be right. Let's stop talking about brotherhood and morality. Let's start talking about what is it that we can give or what is it that we can take away. Otherwise, you don't get a seat at the table.
Dr. Edwards, being a sports show, and I want to keep this in the realm of sport because I know this is kind of broad, but take us from the Olympic boycott in 1968 to sports in 2021. What are you seeing that's different?
Well, it's a whole different area. Sports activism in every area is framed up by the ideological and definitional struggles that are going on in that era. So in 1968, that whole struggle was framed up by the Black Power movement, which was an effort to generate viability and definitional authority among for Black people. This is framed up by the Black Lives Matter effort. So there's a connection, but the connection is one that's framed up by the ideological definitional struggle of each individual era.
So what's next for Dr. Harry Edwards, sir?
You know what? At 80 years old, I've got I got another couple of projects that I'm trying to finish. Documentary productions, TV series, and so forth on sports activism, and the films at the interface of race, sport, and society. And then I'm going to be, hopefully, with my grandsons sitting under a tree somewhere with a picture of lemonade and a bag of peanuts, talking to the kids, and they'll be standing around. And when I say, Jerry Rice, Joe Montana, yeah, them was my guys. Them two boys in L.A., yeah, them was my boys. I got 4 Super Bowl rings with the 49ers. That thing that happened, and then, this old dude is just laughing, and I'll be sitting right there laughing with him and having all kind of fun. That's what I look forward to doing. I'm just trying to get some projects off the table so that I can move forward in that direction.
Well, Dr. Harry, we consider you to be a friend of the program here. You had a question, Troy?
No.
We consider you to be a friend of the program here. We just want to thank you for your time, your insight. Would you please come back and talk to us again on another occasion? If you have anything you want to discuss, don't hesitate to get in contact with us. We have definitely appreciated it. I know our audience have appreciated you appearing on the Tom the Bomb show today.
Well, thank you so very much. It's been a privilege, and I hope it worked for you and that everybody found it worth the time.
All right, I'll be in touch with you. Thanks again, sir. God bless you. Everything you put your hand to will prosper.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Harry. All right, that's Dr. Harry Edwards, East St. Louis native, world activist, and we're going to take a break, and then we're going to come right back.
When it comes to cost and quality, you simply cannot do better than Window Nation. For about half the cost of national brands, you get equal if not better quality, saving you thousands of dollars. Right now, get 2 free windows with every 2 you buy. There's no limit. Plus, put no money down, make no payments, and pay no interest for 24 months. Get a free in-home estimate and we'll give you a free gas card. Go to windownation.com for additional details or call 866-95-NATION.
All righty, we're back again. We want to thank our guest, Dr. Harry Edwards, and he will be back. We'll have him back on the show again. Awesome guest. Hey, let's talk a little baseball. Look, the American League playoffs, the Boston Red Sox bounced back after losing Game 1 to the Houston Astros, winning Game 2 9-5. The series is now tied 1-1. And they're playing tonight at 8:08 p.m. Eastern Time. And I know yesterday, I know how good the football was yesterday, but man, the baseball was just as good. So the Astros had won the season-long series against the Red Sox, but the Red Sox, they got that look in their eye like in 04 and 13. And they look like they're on a roll. So it's going to be very, very interesting for the rest of the series. The baseball in October, it's my favorite time of the year. In the National League, the Braves held serve and won both games against the Los Angeles Dodgers. They now head to Los Angeles for the next 3 games, down 0-2 to the Braves. Game 3 is Tuesday at 5:08 p.m. Eastern. And if you missed that game, maybe you were watching the Steelers and the Seahawks, but that game was epic. The last 3 games have been walk-offs, where they scored in the last inning to walk off and win it. So it's really, really thrilling. It's edge of the seat. I don't know if you're a baseball fan like I am, but this is just fantastic. I love this time of the year. Getting local, look, the St. Louis Baseball Cardinals have fired their manager, Mike Shildt. Yep. These are the same St. Louis Cardinals that won 17 games in a row and 19 out of their last 20, and they cut him loose over philosophical differences. This is what Mo, the president of baseball in the St. Louis Cardinals, said. Because of philosophical difference. Troy, what I wanted to know were there philosophical differences when they won 17 straight games?
I guess not.
Were there philosophical differences when they won 19 out of 20? Here's, and this is just Tom the Bomb's take. The president, I think in St. Louis they're looking for a yes man. And I think Mike Shildt, he had a winning record for all 4 of his years. He was manager of the year in 2019. Troy, it seems to me that once you get manager of the year, it seems like you're going to be fired very, very shortly after. It seems like that happened in almost all sports. Someone becomes manager of the year, and then the next year they're fired, okay? And, he had a winning record. And here's the thing. I'm thinking, I'm not so much philosophical differences. Like I said, I think they're looking for a yes man in St. Louis. He definitely made some erring judgments down the stretch. There's no way he should have went to Reyes in the wild card game against the Dodgers. He definitely made some mistakes. But the guy has a winning record, okay? But let's see what they're going to do, who they're going to bring on next. My suggestion is let Yadi Molina be the player manager. Willie McGee's in the dugout. You can make Willie McGee. There's some alternatives. It's been a long time since we've had diversity in St. Louis in baseball. So that'll be interesting for us to keep our eye on. Hey, look, let's take another quick break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to be talking high school football and Troy's Churchill Bulldogs. They are on a serious roll, just like the East St. Louis Flyers. So we're going to take another break, and we'll be right back with that.
Sheltered by the Sea of Cortez, Danzante Bay is a pure and peaceful oasis, an uncrowded retreat where your options are as vast as your views. If you're seeking a vacation that defines luxury and the true relaxation, look no further than Villa del Palmar at the islands of Loreto. A splendor of true Mexican hospitality effortlessly blends with rich materials and insatiable comforts to bring guests the ideal home away from home experience. With its quiet beaches, scenic vistas, rich history, and an astounding surrounding natural habitat, you'll feel as though you've been swept off to paradise. Not to be outdone, Reese Jones has crafted TPC Danzante Bay, a brilliant, multi-themed 18-hole golf course that runs over and through valleys, arroyos, dunes, and foothills. From every angle, striking images of the islands of Loreto and the surrounding mountain range take your breath away, while the challenging yet rewarding Baja Golf Course beckons you to return for more. It is an honor and my pleasure to welcome you to the world's most beautiful sunset and so much more.
Hey, all gas and no brakes. The Flyers are on a roll. The Flyers thumped the Edwardsville Tigers, and they just recently won the Southwest Conference, and it's getting ready for playoff time. Like I said, I don't think there was really an answer for the Flyers locally, and we really don't expect them to be challenged until they move downstate and start playing some of the bigger schools in the Chicago area, the Mount Carmel schools like that. But we just want to congratulate the Flyers and the coaching staff. They've done a fantastic job as usual. I love the way that they build their schedule, how they play tough teams out of their conference to get them ready for their conference schedule. They roll through the conference schedule, and it really sets them up to go downstate and win another state title. It's why they've won so many state titles. They don't call us the City of Champions for nothing. Congratulations to the coaching staff and the East St. Louis Flyer football team. Hey, on the local front, the Churchill Bulldogs, Coach Troy Wood. Troy, tell us about the Bulldogs. What's going on with the Bulldogs? How'd you guys do again this week against Poolesville?
We won 34-20. Homecoming game. It was electric. We had 3 touchdowns called back in the second half that really would have stretched the lead up to about 50. But all in all, the Poolesville Falcons played great. Kudos to their coaching staff and their players over there. They only have like 15 to 20 guys on their whole team. Everybody was ready when their time was called. Next week, we face Richard Montgomery at Churchill. It'll be our last home game of the season going into playoff time. And then, that's pretty much it. Guys played well. Coach staff did a great job as usual. Go Dogs.
Alrighty. Okay, this takes us right into week 6 of the NFL with our scores and predictions. Let's start off with the Thursday night game, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Philadelphia Eagles. And the Buccaneers prevailed 28-22. And this game was a lot closer than what I thought it was going to be, Troy. Philadelphia really does have a pretty good defense. What was your take on the game?
Jalen Hurts is a great football player. He did everything he could to bring his team back. It wasn't enough. Tampa Bay leaned on their running game, took a lot of pressure off of Brady, and all in all, they played a great team when they win this game.
Okay. Our next game was the Miami Dolphins versus the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Jaguars got their first win of the year, 23-20. I know Brad and Annette are loving this. What's going on in Miami? I really thought the Dolphins would win this game. This doesn't look like the same Miami team from last year, Troy. What's going on?
It's not the same Miami team from last year. They don't have Bobby McCain. Ryan Fitzpatrick isn't the quarterback. Tua can't stay healthy. They have a lot of questions for a young team. And not to mention, they had to travel all the way from Miami over to London to play a football game. All in all, this game, it could have went either or. I'm just glad that the Jacksonville Jaguars finally got off the losing streak.
Well, they got some talent there. I think they've started to run the ball like you were suggesting, and I think the key, we said the key for a young quarterback is to be able to run the ball and have some defense. And I think this is a really, really good win over what I still think is a decent Miami Dolphins team, 23-20. Our next game was the Minnesota Vikings versus the Carolina Panthers, and the Vikings prevailed 34-28. Man, the Vikings seem to be the definition of Jekyll and Hyde. You just don't know what you're going to get out of this Vikings team. One week they look like total losers. The next week they come back and win. They play Detroit. Detroit plays them gridlocked, and then they come back against Carolina and they put up 34 points, but they give up 28. What's your take on this game?
They didn't have Dalvin Cook last week. Personnel is key. when playing football. If all your personnel isn't available, you'll be a different team when game day comes around.
But Madison rushed for over 100 yards.
Madison is still not Dalvin Cook.
Okay.
So therefore, when you don't have a lot of time to game plan for somebody, it's harder for you to determine how they're going to affect you when you have to game plan against them. You know what you're going to get against Dalvin Cook. It's hard to tell what you're going to get from Madison, but there's a reason why Dalvin Cook is RB1 and Madison is the RB2. Minnesota they prevailed. They won the close game, and it doesn't surprise me that it was a close game because Kirk Cousins seems to play in a close game every week, and it's been like that ever since he got drafted in 2014. So, they finally are on the better end of the stick on this and winning. Go with Minnesota.
What's your take on the Carolina defense? I was shocked that they.
Well, to be honest, I
didn't.
I didn't see the game, so I don't know. But all in all, they're young, they fly, and they have a good culture there. So, it's going to be some curves in the road, but you play up against professional athletes, QB1s that make millions upon millions of dollars. They're supposed to score against points against you. So, we'll see how everything plays out.
All right, our next game was the Los Angeles Chargers versus the Baltimore Ravens, and Tom the Bomb took the Chargers in this game, and Troy, you had the Ravens. The Ravens prevail 34-6. I know the Chargers have one of the weaker defense versus the run, and Baltimore is traditionally one of the best running teams in the NFL, so this kind of was like right up their alley. But did you expect this kind of game out of the Ravens thumping the Chargers like this?
Yes, offensively, yes. Did I expect the Chargers to only score 6 points? No. But the Ravens have one identity. They're going to bully you. We're going to run the ball, and there ain't nothing you can do to stop it. So this doesn't surprise me. They finally took the training wheels off Lamar Jackson, like I've been preaching for the past 3 years. He finally got his revenge against his Chargers team, in which he lost to his first year as a rookie in the playoffs. Man, this team, they know their identity. They stick to it. It doesn't matter who their running back is. It's shown that they can find a running back off the street and still have 300 yards rushing, game in and game out. Lamar Jackson is the truth. Now that he threw for 400-plus yards passing, now defensive coordinators feel like they have to game plan against him throwing the ball. So what does that do? It opens up running lanes. And what does that do? It allows the offense to take control of the game, take momentum in the game, and then basically say, look, we're going to bully y'all. There's nothing you can do to stop us. And that's exactly what happened.
Okay, look, I need some on-air advice from you, okay? Because we talked last week, and let's go back to the week before where the Ravens played the Indianapolis Colts, and Lamar Jackson set all kind of passing records, 442 yards, and of course he scored 100 points in fantasy, and I had him on the bench, and I played Kirk Cousins, and I lost, okay? So what happens this week? Lamar throws for 167 yards, Kirk Cousins on the bench, he scores 73 points. He throws for almost 400 yards. What I'm asking for some advice here. Mm-hmm. What am I supposed to do with these two guys?
Stop thinking from a fantasy perspective. If you think from a fantasy perspective, you're going to confuse yourself every week. Who's the better quarterback?
Lamar Jackson.
Who's more explosive?
Lamar Jackson.
Who has the best winning percentage out of any quarterback under the age of 25?
That would be Lamar Jackson.
So therefore, you go with Lamar Jackson. I mean, people overthink things. The Colts are a team in which they're known to stop the run, and they have the same mindset that the Baltimore Ravens do in trying to control the clock from an offensive standpoint. They are no longer the Peyton Manning-led Indianapolis Colts where they throw the ball 500 passing yards in a game. The Ravens, they know how to play their cards right. And with Lamar, he knows he's a football player. He's what I call a backyard football player, meaning it might not look the prettiest on how he does it, but he's going to get the job done. And people in the neighborhood know who the big dog on the block is when they play up against Baltimore. Lamar Jackson is probably the biggest headache for a defensive coordinator in the NFL right now, because the people who are ignorant saying that he couldn't do this and he couldn't make a throw 50 yards down the field on a dime and he couldn't hit the 20-yard comeback route, they're all a bunch of fakers who don't know the game of football and want to judge a guy because he does something different compared to everybody else. I preach the same thing week in and week out. There is no way, I don't care what the situation is, I'm never starting Kirk Cousins over Lamar Jackson, because Lamar Jackson has that it factor. Kirk Cousins doesn't. Lamar can throw for the ball 300 yards. He can run the ball for 150 yards. So therefore, with the versatility, yeah, he only scored 16 points, but man, they beat the brakes off the Chargers 34-6. To be honest with you, they could have benched them in the fourth quarter. So it's not about from a fantasy perspective, it's about from a production perspective. And last I checked, this is the most successful quarterback in NFL history under the age of 25. Get him out of here.
So, from a production, I should just lock in Lamar and just go with him and ride him out?
I mean, yeah, because think about it. If you're in his league, he gets bonus points for guys who throw for over 300 yards passing. That's not the same in every other league when it comes to fantasy football. That's why we talked about before the season started to check your
rules.
To check your rules and see how everything plays out. Yeah, in his Fugazi league, that sounds cool to start to start Kirk Cousins over Lamar Jackson, because he can throw the ball 45 times and throw for 300+ yards, because the Minnesota Vikings are always, or not always, majority of the time are in a catch-up scenario. Right? That's why Jared Goff in his league is also a great quarterback, because one of the Detroit Lions is going to be in a position where they're going to be winning going into the fourth quarter.
Not often.
He's going to be throwing the ball 45 times a game, meaning he could easily throw for 350+ yards. In his league, that's the GOAT. But from a football perspective, ain't nobody taking Kirk Cousins, Jared Goff over Lamar Jackson. Like, come on, man. It's common sense.
Alrighty. Okay. All right, our next game was the LA Rams versus the New York G-Men, and the Rams ran roughshod over the Giants 38-11. What about the quarterback in LA? He looks good.
Yeah, they got the perfect setup for him. The perfect setup for him. Defense is firing off on all cylinders because the offense is finally taking pressure off of him. And Cooper Kupp is turned into a legit wide receiver one, even though he was already a good receiver before Stafford got there. He's turned into a top 5 receiver from a fantasy perspective and from just an overall football perspective. The man runs great routes, and they just I think of Romo and Witten. I think of Brady and Gronk. When you need a third down, when you need a play, you need to know who you can go to, and it's clear that Stafford has that in Cooper Kupp.
What's your take for our New York Giant fans?
They're just, man, it's not y'all time. It wasn't y'all time at the beginning of the season. It wasn't y'all time at draft day, and for sure as heck isn't y'all time right now. Y'all still got a lot of work to do, and there's nothing to put a slander on them. Look, man, they almost beat us. If it weren't for that defensive lineman jumping on that field goal at the end of the game, we would have lost to the Giants. So it's no slander against New York. It's just they have a bad offensive line. They can't stay healthy. They don't know who their wide receiver one is. Their defense is off and on. What more do you need? This team is definitely in rebuilding. So it's
going to be a long season.
A long season.
Okay. Our next game was the Houston Texans versus the Indianapolis Colts, and the Colts throttled them 31-3. David Mills is not the answer in Houston. What's your take?
Yeah, of course he's not the answer. But that's a whole nother conversation. The Colts did what they were supposed to. They win this game and dominated this game against an interdivision opponent. Jonathan Taylor has
happy to see him doing better.
Yeah, and not only him, I love the fact that Marlon Mack is back and still producing, even though he's not getting the touches that he was getting 2 years ago. He was the RB1 of this offense before Jonathan Taylor came. But what I'm saying is that he's not hanging his head. When he gets a chance to get on the field, he produces. And when you got a 3-headed monster, a running back, that's how just talk about the Giants. That's how they won their Super Bowl. They led off of the defensive line and the Earth, Wind, and Fire running backs, and Brendan Jacobs, Ahmad Bradshaw, and I can't remember the other guy, but literally they had 3 running back rotation, and it was hard for teams to stop it. Now you got Jonathan Taylor, Marlon Mack, and that receiving back, I can't remember, Nyheim Hines. You got Nyheim Hines. They're definitely a well-coached team, and when you got a defense that does great against the run and thrives off of the offense putting up points, It's going to be a fun team to watch moving forward.
Alrighty, next we have the Kansas City Chiefs versus our Washington football team. The
Worst game
Chiefs
of the week.
prevailed 31-13. Troy,
Worst game of the week.
worst game of the week.
Worst game of the week, and it has nothing to do with what happened on the football field. It had nothing to do with what happened on the football field. I didn't expect Washington to win this game. Nobody expected Washington to win this game. Shoot, when they were up,
They had opportunities,
They
though.
did, yeah. But it's like the fact that they lost the way that they did it surprise you? I say the same
It
thing
surprised
every
they
week.
lost.
They beat themselves every week. They can't get off the field on third down. And you know, we can't do anything to really score points until we get punched in the mouth. It's a team that literally matches energy as opposed to setting the tone. And when you have a team set up like that, you're destined to fail. Now, I wanted to talk about the terrible decision that Dan Snyder made to cover his behind in the midst of this investigation going on with Bruce Allen and John Gruden for the Las Vegas Raiders. The fact that this clown, yeah, and I'm calling you a clown, the fact that you decided to have Sean Taylor, his remembrance, and retiring his jersey against the Kansas City Chiefs 4 days before game day goes to show a lot about your character and who you are as a man. I'm so tired of you, because ultimately it's you in which we have the worst attendance in all of football when it comes to home games. It's because of you. Everybody thinks we're a joke.
And you used to couldn't get a ticket.
And now,
Used to couldn't
literally,
get a ticket.
they're begging you to come, to the point where they want to pull a marketing scheme to cover his butt because he want to have, I'm not even going to go there. But point being is, he know he messed up, and he tried to use this as a cover-up, and then had the audacity to say, oh, yeah, this has been weeks and months in the planning. Ain't been no weeks and months. I heard at the game during halftime, they showed a minute video honoring Sean Taylor, had his moment of silence, and then the family got off the field. That's what you call a month's worth or week's worth of preparation? Boy, you're a clown. You're literally a clown. And everybody is now, this is the beauty of social media. Now people can really see how people feel about their organization from a social media standpoint. People are dragging you, as they should, because you're out here making our organization, an organization that won, what, 2 or 3 Super Bowls in the 90s that I never got to witness? Like, come on, bro. Under you, we're 5-22 on Monday Night Football. We've never had an 11-game winning season. Like, dog, it's because of you. We have the talent. We have, people still slandering Taylor Heineke because he only put up 13 points. Man, Taylor Heineke is playing the best football that he can, and he's basically trying to pull along a ship that already dropped the anchor. Like, bro, like this team is still in good shape. It just has to figure out how to get off the field on third down, and coaches have to put their foot down and putting the right personnel out on the field to succeed. But other than that, everything else about this organization, just like you said, you can't rise above your leadership. If the leadership is bad, your team's going to be bad. And Dan Snyder is the worst owner, not in football, in sports history. In sports history. You took somebody in which not only me, but everybody from my era that played football, Sean Taylor was a legend. And you just said we're gonna treat it like it's nothing. You could have did this against the Buccaneers a couple weeks from now. You could have did this on Monday Night Football against Seattle, so that way it had the national exposure. You decided to do this against the best offense that just played in the Super Bowl on the Sunday game at 1 o'clock. You're a clown.
You know, the NFL has been covering for Daniel Snyder, and he's pretty much been embarrassing the NFL. I think it's only a matter of time where they're going to have to make him sell his team.
And see, but see, what's going to blow me is that they're going to do it once they finally get the leaking of information out there. That's the reason why John Gruden was fired. If John Gruden's information didn't get put out there, he'd still be part of the Las Vegas Raiders coaching staff right this second. It just took somebody to literally expose him for him to say, oh yeah, I'm gonna resign. I don't want no smoke. Notice how the owner of the Raiders didn't fire John Gruden. He resigned.
wanna
Meaning,
get rid of him.
if he really wanted to stay there, he could probably still be there, even though it would have been probably a bad look for their organization.
The NFL wouldn't allow it.
But point being is that the right things don't get done until the right information gets put out, as opposed to literally everybody knowing that this man's a fraud, everybody knowing that this man is corrupt, and don't nobody want to say nothing until literally money's involved or your job is involved. That's why the Redskins aren't the Redskins anymore, because the man said in 2014 that he would never change the name of the Washington Redskins. Then what happened? FedEx and Pepsi said, nah, dog, we're going to take your money if you don't. Then he turned into a little girl when it's like, oh, yeah, well, now because it's the right thing to do. And I'm honestly thinking about the thoughts and compassion of people from Native American descent, that now I want to make this decision. Everything in this world, and from what I've seen, is money motivated. And when you're trying to show a young culture, my culture, the culture underneath me, the right thing to do, yet we see every single day that you guys want to do things by money and be money motivated, you can't look at us and say what's wrong with us. Because ultimately, if you want to look at us like that, we can do the same thing to y'all. You know, it's bad, man. This goes deeper than football. This goes deeper than football. That's why Colin Kaepernick don't got a job right now, because he did something that wasn't popular, but he didn't care that it was going to cost him money. He stood for something that was right morally, and that's why, just like Dr. Harry Edwards said, he's in that dang, I can't
Hall of
remember.
Fame.
And not the Hall of Fame,
Right.
but he's in
Museum.
the museum right next to Muhammad Ali and names like that, bro. So ultimately, it's just showing that if you want to do the right thing, sometimes you gotta be willing to, you know, get rid of everything that you motivated for. Money shouldn't be a motivator, considering that all these other things are happening. I'm getting ahead of myself, bro. But ultimately, dog, I'm just tired of hearing the same crap. You know, it's the same things over and over with this organization, and I'm tired of it.
Alrighty, our next game was the Green Bay Packers versus the Chicago Bears, and Aaron Rodgers says, I still own you. I still own you. And that he would, the one team that he would never ever play for was the Chicago Bears. So this really set up bulletin board material for this game, and the Packers still prevail 24-14. Now, all of the Chicago fans out there, are you guys ready to get rid of Nagy as your head coach now? What's your take?
I mean, yeah, if you want to see Justin Fields thrive, that's the best way to do it. Bring somebody that actually has a similar mindset or a motivating mindset that could actually elevate his game, as opposed to having a coach kind of throw backhanded compliments at you, saying that, we still don't know who the quarterback's going to be, and Justin still has a lot of growing to do, and you just pointing out all the negatives as opposed to highlighting his positives. Said the same thing about Baltimore with Lamar Jackson back in 2017, 2018. The best way to do this is by having set up a set of plays that this man is going to run effectively, and that will help put up points. And that should be the end goal for an organization. But they still have this man outside his comfort zone doing things he has no business doing, and it's making him look bad.
Justin Fields is not the problem in Chicago.
Exactly.
Our next game is the Cincinnati Bengals versus the Lions. The Bengals prevailed 34-11. Bengals are getting better. The Lions are the Lions.
Yeah, I say love the Jamar Chase hook up with Joe Burrow. That's probably one of the best picks that Cincinnati made in a long time.
Our next game was the undefeated Arizona Cardinals versus the Cleveland Browns, and the Arizona Cardinals prevailed 37-14. I think Cleveland is now 3-3, probably one of the bigger disappointments in the NFL. That defense has given up a lot of points. I know they've played some really good football teams, but that defense has given up a lot of points. The Chargers blew their doors off. Arizona just blew their doors off. It's the defense. I think Baker Mayfield's doing an okay job, but it's the defense in Cleveland.
Well, keyword okay. With Arizona and the Chargers are two teams in which they can put up and match point for point with any team in the NFL. So when the Arizona Cardinals take a big lead, and you got the Cleveland Browns, who are a time of possession, old school pound and rock team, they lean on both their stud running backs. When one of the running backs isn't playing, the other running back gets a non-contact leg injury. it takes a whole left turn on your game plan. So I think them losing Kareem Hunt in the middle of this game really hurt them. I feel like Baker Mayfield still has a lot of learning to do to become a come from behind quarterback as opposed to a game manager quarterback. He showed that he can do that in Oklahoma. He should be able to do it here in Cleveland. There's still a lot of questions between him and his wide receiving core. Jarvis Landry's still hurt. That's probably his number one target that's not here. Although Beckham is back, but he doesn't really have the chemistry and connection that Eli did with Odell. So, it's just being able to put yourself in a good position to score points. And I feel like they have the talent to, but it's still a lot of learning curves that needs to be done.
Alrighty, our next game was the Dallas Cowboys versus the New England Patriots, and the Cowboys prevailed 35-29. This was a very, very entertaining game. Dallas is a fun team to watch, and they've got a lot of talent on that offensive side of the ball, and their defense is it's getting better. It's getting better. When the Patriots didn't lock this game down in regulation, I knew they weren't going to take the boys out in overtime. What was your take?
Yeah, I agree. I just want to highlight Trayvon Diggs is on a roll. Had a pick 6 against the Patriots. Pick interception in each game, 7 interceptions through 6 games. That's something.
That's Hall of Fame.
The Cowboys are, they looking like a well-oiled machine now. Every week I talk about just feed Zeke, take pressure off Dak. They're finally doing that, so I'm not going to get too deep into that. I just love at how everybody is just rallying behind number 4. Number 4 is the perfect quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. He might not be the best quarterback in the league right now, even though he's playing at a high level, but he is the perfect leader, the perfect motivator, the perfect inspirational tool that Dallas needed to get back to that 13-3 days that they showcased in 2014 with DeMarco Murray and Tony Romo and Dez Bryant. It's a lot of learning curves for this team as well, but I'm a huge believer in momentum in football games. And when you see your offense going out there doing its thing, the defense has to step up. Randy Gregory, he absolutely demolished Mac Jones on that sack fumble in which they recovered. That, in my opinion, set the tone for the whole rest of the team. Now, Mac Jones, I wanted to highlight that he's playing very well.
Yes,
I did give him a lot of slander before the season started, and any time that I feel like I'm wrong and I look and see that a guy's playing much better, I want to just go out there and publicly address it. But the Cowboys are the better team, and they finally are just moving at a good pace.
Okay, with all the turmoil that happened in Las Vegas, the Raiders stood up and defeated the Broncos 34-24. I thought it was a fantastic job of them rallying together and pulling out a win that I didn't necessarily think they were going to get. But they showed up and they beat a good Broncos team 34-24.
I want to say this: the firing of John Gruden may be a blessing in disguise from a football perspective for the Las Vegas Raiders. Keyshawn Johnson had a lot of foul words to say about John Gruden,
yes,
and about how when he played in Tampa Bay,
I got to interrupt you. Look, for a year and a half, I've been saying this guy's a fraud. I hadn't heard anybody else say that, but then you mentioned Keyshawn. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Keyshawn Johnson made it clear that back when he played wide receiver for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the early 2000s, after he came from the Jets, he made it clear that John Gruden was a bad guy. He wasn't the right guy from a football organization. He was a guy that definitely knew his stuff when it came from a chalkboard or blackboard perspective, being able to write out plays, X's and O's, but he wasn't that guy when it came from a leadership perspective. He was bad morally, and Keyshawn made a key comment in that he tried to make it seem as if I was only saying this to get more attention in the passing game, as if I was trying to be a selfish player to my team to try to make it seem about it was me, as opposed to just highlighting the fact that this is a bad guy, whether if I get 20 targets in the game or 2 targets in the game from Brad Johnson and company back when they played in Tampa Bay. Anytime that a guy is called out by an old player like that, more often than not, the same issues are kind of transcending in the locker room going forward in the future. And we can't really point out everything that's going on in the Raiders locker room and how they look at John Gruden. But the fact that he got fired and they were still able to put up 34 points in an away game against Denver, a divisional opponent, that shows that it's probably a breath of fresh air. And sometimes the organization needs that breath of fresh air to then regroup. And yeah, John Gruden had, he made a couple decisions that helped them win games this season. I'm not going to say he's a bad coach, but it might be better that he's gone because I think that they'll definitely take off.
I told you this guy was a fraud. Been saying it for over a year and a half. Our last game was the Seattle Seahawks. The Sunday night game was the Seattle Seahawks versus the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Steelers won this game 23-20. Of course, Russell Wilson didn't play, and the Steelers won. And yes, they won. That's all I can really say. They didn't look impressive to me winning, but they won. What was your take?
Yeah, it wasn't impressive.
Some bad refereeing in this game, right?
Yeah. But all in all, Mike Tomlin, he just knows how to get his team in a position to win games ultimately, and that's all I'm looking at.
Very good coach.
He has not had a losing record ever since he's been the coach of this team, going back to 2007?
15, 16 years.
That's what I'm saying.
With the same team.
So
that's impressive.
Just to see how, every week they find a way to pull it out. I'm still not a Ben fan, but Ben made a lot of key throws. Deontay Johnson has definitely turned into his new Antonio Brown, and Najee Harris has definitely turned into his new Le'Veon Bell. And now they're finally starting to identify who they are as a team. And that's one thing I respect about Pittsburgh. They always stick to their identity. They always have that defensive front,
like the Ravens.
TJ Watt is definitely in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year. That sack that he had at the end of the game definitely set the tone going into their offensive drive in the overtime. They just have a lot of gamers there. So
yeah, they can't block him either, or his brother.
Yeah.
Hey, look, our Monday night game tonight at 8:15 p.m. is the Buffalo Bills versus the Tennessee Titans. And I'm going to go with the Bills. I'm a huge Henry fan. And I love the Titans. I love Mike Vrabel. But, I would be picking with my heart and not my brain. I'm going with the Buffalo Bills. Who do you like?
I'm going with Tennessee.
Oh, really?
The only way, in my opinion, that Buffalo wins this game is if they get up early on them by at least 3 scores.
Wow, you're picking the Titans to win tonight?
Yes, because the Titans, they've shown that even if they're down going into halftime, they'll stick to their game plan and stick to Derrick Henry. Mm-hmm. And when you get in the third and fourth quarter, we talk about the Shaq effect, about how guys just got physically wore out in the fourth quarter, having to guard Shaq in the post. Even if L.A. was down going into the fourth quarter, right? Even if they needed threes to get back and cut the lead down, they still found a way to feed Shaq. And in this scenario, Derrick Henry is Shaq. They're going to find a way to get this man the ball and run the ball even if they're down. I wanted to talk about this before we go forward. When we played Poolsville this week at Churchill, Poolsville, they played old school football. They ran a triple I formation. They ran double wing. And literally they had, like I said, they only had 15 or 16 guys on their whole football team. But literally it was a tough game because they controlled the clock and they were playing smash mouth. And that's what I love about Mike Vrabel. No matter what, he's going to stick to that New England old way of smash mouth football and throw the ball when we need to off of setups to then highlight, in my opinion, the best running back in the league. And if
best
this
fantasy running back,
this man, if this man gets 20 or more carries, I don't see Buffalo winning this game.
Alrighty, let's get to our picks real quick. The next Thursday night game is going to be the Denver Broncos versus the Cleveland Browns. And I'm going to take the Cleveland Browns in this one.
I'm taking Cleveland as well.
All right, then we got the Carolina Panthers versus the New York Giants. I'm going with the Carolina Panthers.
I'm going with the Panthers as well.
We got the New York Jets versus the New England Patriots. I'm going with the New England Patriots.
Patriots as well.
All right, and then we have the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Tennessee Titans. I'm going with the Tennessee Titans in this game.
I'm going with Kansas City.
All righty, then we have our Washington football team versus the Green Bay Packers. I'm going with Green Bay.
Ain't no way, heck, I'm choosing Washington. Green Bay.
Green Bay, all right. Then we have the Atlanta Falcons versus the Miami Dolphins. I'm going with the Miami Dolphins.
Going with the Atlanta Falcons.
All right. Then we got the Cincinnati Bengals versus the Baltimore Ravens. I'm taking the Ravens.
Ravens.
We got the Detroit Lions versus the LA Rams. I'm going with the LA Rams.
Rams.
And then we have the Philadelphia Eagles versus the Las Vegas Raiders. It's going to be a good, really good football team, but I am going to go with the Raiders.
I'm going to go with Philly.
Hey, then we got the Houston Texans versus the undefeated Arizona Cardinals. This is the pick, the lock of the week. Take Arizona. There's no way Texas is beating them. The only way Texas can win this game is if the Arizona Cardinals don't show up. That's it. What do you like?
Arizona.
Right. Then we got the Chicago Bears versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm going with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, Buccaneers as well.
And then we have the Indianapolis Colts versus my San Francisco 49ers. I'm going with the 49ers.
I'll go with the Colts.
All right, of course he was going to go get me. And the Monday night game, which we'll cover next week, is the New Orleans Saints versus the Seattle Seahawks. We're going to get to that next week. Hey, look, I just want to give a shout out. Happy birthday to my Shiro, my hero, my Shiro, birthday, Tommy Lee Wood. Yep, that's my mom. My mom would have been 95 years old today. I love and adored my mom. I worshiped the ground she walked on. She used to always tell me that you ain't better than nobody, but ain't nobody better than you either. You know, she always had a way of keeping you grounded and acting like you've been there. You know, I was in sports all along, and she would say that to me all the time. Hey, have you scored a touchdown before? Yeah, I scored a touchdown, Mom. Okay, then act like you've scored a touchdown before. She always kept you grounded. She was an absolute genius with 13 kids, making them all feel loved. Happy birthday, Graham, to your many, many grandchildren. You want to say something towards your grandma?
Yeah, happy heavenly birthday, Graham. I didn't really have a personal relationship with you, only because of the fact that I'm in Maryland, we're still in St. Louis, but just the influence that you've had on our family, the respect that you've gained from our family. I've heard so many stories about you and Granddad, so just to hear that it's your birthday today, happy birthday, love you.
Happy 95th heavenly birthday, Tommy Lee Wood, my hero. Only got two heroes in my life, my mom, my big brother Nat Wood. Only two heroes I've had. Hey, look, man, time flies when you're having fun. We're out of time here, but we sure do thank you for spending your time with us. We want to thank our guest, Dr. Harry Edwards. We're going to have him back on. He was awesome today. Thank you, Dr. Edwards. May the gates of heaven open and pour an abundance of blessings down on you where there won't be room enough to contain it. Remember, if you want it, you got to confess it with your mouth and believe it in your heart that Jesus died on the cross and that he rose on the third day, not a Thursday, right, Troy?
Yes, sir.
Just for you. Remember, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. And hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. God bless you. We'll see you guys again at the same bat time on this same bat channel. Peace.